by GMenJ on Twitter. I'm here with my guy Dan Turner, aka Eagle Dan FF on Twitter. How's it going, Dan?
Good, Ben. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. I could be doing a lot better. I had a pretty rough week one with all my fantasy teams. How did your week go?
My big money leagues, I did okay. I had a really close loss in my big money one, lost by 4 points. Decided to bench Jameson Crowder and play Jarvis Landry, so that was rough. But in my own league, I dominated. I had the highest score of the week, so that made me pretty happy.
There you go. Yeah, I unfortunately had some pretty bad injury luck, and just about everybody who was a bust this week was on my team. My wide receiving core was Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, and A.J. Brown. So not only did they stink it up, they also got injured. So I won't be able to start them this week. And I had Barkley, Nick Chubb, George Kittle. So I was the projected to be the highest score, and I had the lowest score. So not too good, but it is what it is. That's the nature of the beast. You just got to shake it off and keep going. So let's get into a little bit of the news and notes from the week. One of the biggest things from week one was injuries, like I was talking about. I mean, it was unreal. I don't know, maybe it had to do with no preseason and very limited training camp, but, Michael Thomas, Chris Godwin, A.J. Brown, and all these
Kenny
are coming
Golladay.
over later. Kenny Golladay, Miles Sanders. I mean, the list just goes on and on. So you think it has anything to do with the way the off season is, and they weren't able to go to their facilities, or do you think it's just one of those things?
I think it absolutely has to do with what happened with preseason. Like, there was no preseason games, there wasn't any OTAs, there was barely training camp. I mean, you can't just get into football shape just by working out. You have to play football. And I think pretty much, I think 75% of the league has some kind of hamstring injury at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of soft tissue injuries.
Yeah, so I think it absolutely has to do with the fact that it was a very shortened offseason and they couldn't even get into their buildings to do strength and conditioning or anything like that.
Yeah. And I remember, too, when they had the lockout a few years ago, and they really pushed for less practices during training camp and stuff like that. And the less practices that year, there was more injuries. So I definitely think there's a correlation there.
Mm-hmm.
Another big happening from the week was Tom Brady did not look that great in his first start as a Buccaneers quarterback. He got some garbage time, and he was overall his stats looked okay. But if you watch the game, he didn't look like the Brady everybody was expecting.
Yeah, he definitely looked old. I mean, there's no way to put it.
He did, absolutely.
He's closing in on 45. I mean, at some point, Father Time is going to catch up to you. It's undefeated for a reason.
Yeah, I was about to say Father Time's undefeated.
Yeah, so I mean, even Brady, he wasn't terrible. I mean, it wasn't like he was like Ryan Leaf or anybody, but he definitely wasn't like the Brady that we saw in New England.
Right. Yeah, and that was one of unfortunately, being on vacation with my family, I wasn't able to get my 10 things out before we could discuss it on the show last week. But that was my number one thing, is everybody needs to pump their brakes with the Tampa Bay offense. It's going to take some time. Brady being in a new offense for the first time. Mike Evans was injured. Gronk, I tell you what, Gronk looked slower than me. He does not look like the Gronk he used to be. So I definitely think it's going to take some time for them to – I think they'll be fine. Brady's, a good enough quarterback. The Giants fan, I can't stand him, but there's no denying he's one of the best ever. I think they'll be fine overall, but I think it's going to take some time.
Absolutely. Agreed.
And probably one of the biggest stories of the entire week was that Dallas pass interference call at the end of the game on Michael Gallup. I got to say, Jalen Ramsey, he gets the award for best acting this week, because that was I hate, Giants fan, Eagles fan, we both hate Dallas, but I mean, I don't know how you feel, but I definitely think that was an act. That was nowhere near deserving of the reaction that he got. I mean, I don't blame him. It worked. It possibly won them the game, but that was definitely an acting job, in my opinion.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, it's true that Gallup did extend his arm, but Ramsey definitely sold the hell out of that. I mean, he sold to the point where the refs kind of had to make that call. I mean, with the optics of it and everything.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
But it definitely was an acting job on Ramsey, and it definitely helped win them the game for sure.
Yeah, and of course, this is the year that they decide to get rid of the review for the pass interference, where I think that might have actually been one that they might have decided to overturn.
Hmm.
So let's go on. We're going to discuss your rookie rankings. They look drastically different than
They are
what they look.
drastically.
I give you credit. Sometimes people are stubborn and they don't want to change things from what they see and what they thought. But it's you did a good job. I'm going to let you talk about those a little bit, and we'll discuss them.
Great. All right, so let me just run through them real quick. So at number one, pretty much the same one as last week, was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He got a lot more rushing attempts than I thought he was going to be honest. There was 25 times for a $138 and a touchdown. Everyone was rightfully talking about the fact that he did absolutely nothing on the goal line, and his lack of pass opportunities. But I'm looking at it as he got all these fantasy points without getting any catches and getting stuff at the goal line. So like,
So we know he can catch.
yeah, exactly. So what is it going to happen when they incorporate him into the passing game? I mean, the sky's the limit then. Number two, Jonathan Taylor, same as last week. He was actually in consideration for number one now that Marlon Mack is done for the year and the job is pretty much his. But I do think that Nyheim Hines is going to, eat into his workload a little bit, especially in the passing game. I think that people that think that Taylor's just going to be, a true three down back and Hines is going to lose some work, or I don't think that's going to be true. I think Hines is going to get even more work than he usually got, but Taylor's going to get the bulk of the carries though. So he's firmly at number two for me. Number three is my first new guy, J.K. Dobbins. The only reason that I was hesitant for ranking him in the top 10 last week because I didn't really know how it was going to work out with him and Mark Ingram in the backfield. I don't know how the carries are going to be split. But now that I see that he gets a lot of the goal line touches, apparently, I feel like the sky's the limit for him too, and eventually he's going to supplement Ingram earlier than we thought he would.
Yeah, absolutely.
Number four was Joe Burrow, who's actually playing tonight. He dropped down for number three last week. He had a solid, opening week for a rookie with little snow camp. He had some good throws. He definitely got better as the game wore on, and he even had that almost game-winning throw that was called back for offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
So, he showed that he had legs with his running touchdown. So I think that his underrated rushing ability, combined with more starts, is going to make him that he's going to be a good quarterback down the road.
I think he's going to have a big game tonight.
I do too. Number five is Laviska Shenault, your boy. He was unranked last week.
He definitely showed out. He definitely made me look smart. He was all over the field.
Yeah, well, someone has to make you look smart because you don't do
anything. Yeah, it takes a lot, but every now and then.
But yeah, I mean, you were right on target last week. They used him in a variety of roles.
Oh, can you say that again real quick so we can make sure everybody here, who was right?
You.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I appreciate that. You can go ahead now.
I mean, it's in print. I can't say that you were wrong. I mean, that's just lying. I can't lie to the audience. It's our second show.
You got to wait till we have a few more of those before you start doing that.
Then I'll start lying to them. But yeah, he had the receptions. They added in 2 rushes, so he's definitely going to be like more of an offensive weapon than just a wide receiver. So, and with pretty much just DJ Shark and maybe James Robinson in that offense, the potential for him to get a lot of work is there.
I know Robinson had a good week, but I still don't. I don't know. Maybe I'm stubborn, but I just don't buy into it. I think this offense is going to be Chark and Shenault, and that's about it. I still wouldn't be surprised if they pick up a veteran running back.
You're definitely stubborn. That's for sure. Number 6 was so the rest of these are just unranked people because I had to switch up, like you said, my list a lot. Number 6 was Joshua Kelly, the running back from the Chargers.
Man, he looked good.
He honestly, I think that he's not going to be Gordon was, but he's definitely going to be. He could be Melvin Gordon light in that offense.
Yeah, absolutely.
He rushed 12 times for 60 yards, got that touchdown. Justin Jackson, words, seems to be falling down the pecking order a little bit. And I feel like, Eckler's the receiving back, and Kelly's just going to get those rushes in. So I'm excited to see what he looks like down the road.
Yeah, things might change when Herbert eventually comes in, and if Tyrod keeps looking as bad as he did week one, that might come sooner than later. But Tyrod definitely does not want to dump the ball off like Phillip Rivers used to. So I definitely think it's stock up for Joshua Kelly.
Yeah. Number 7 is CeeDee Lamb from the Cowboys. Gross. He was targeted 6 times, caught 5 passes, 59 yards. He displayed some of the yak that he's famous for, that he had in college. I think the injury to Blake Jarwin means his work is going to go way up. Now they don't really have like a tight end that Dak trusts. So I feel like he's going to get a bunch of that, in between the lines work. Number 8 is the aforementioned James Robinson. I know last week we both said we didn't really know much about him.
We both poo-pooed him, to be honest.
We did.
I'll admit when I was wrong, and he made us both look like idiots last week. So if he keeps it up, he keeps it up. But
yeah. No, they gave him the ball, rushed 16 times for 62 yards, and had a catch for 28 yards. He had a really respectable fantasy day. I was honestly pretty shocked that Chris Thompson was really nowhere to be found after hyping him all offseason as like the catching receiving back. He was just
we know the relationship that he's got with Jay Gruden. Bring him over from Washington. It only made sense for him to have a role in this offense. But it looked like Robinson was the guy in week one.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Do you think that former players going back with their coaches is overrated, or do you think that it's underrated? Like Thompson going back with his former coach.
I would say I'm going to cop out a little bit and say kind of a little bit in between. I definitely think it's something to take into consideration, but I don't necessarily think I take it back. I say it's overrated. I think it's something we do need to take into consideration, especially in a season like this where the teams that have familiarity are going to have an advantage. But we saw with James Robinson and Chris Thompson week one, it's not necessarily the end-all, be-all. You always hear a guy, like Bruce Arians going and he never uses the tight end. Well, yeah, that kind of has been the case so far. Now that he's got, Tom Brady and O.J. Howard and Gronk, that might change. But overall, I think that for the most part, it's overrated. But it's something to pay attention to, but not make decisions based on that solely.
Yeah, it's not the be-all end-all.
Right. Well, just related to what we're talking about, the Pros with Joe's Charity League just asked us, do we think Thompson's role is significant with Jacksonville's training, or is this Robinson's show now? And that's why you and I both were high on Thompson. I don't think anybody saw Jacksonville winning last week. And, we were expecting them to be playing from behind almost the whole game, the way that they've been tanking. But Gardner Minshew had other ideas. I do think that Thompson's still going to be involved. I'm not giving up on him just yet, just because what we were talking about, the familiarity with Jay Gruden's offense and how he likes to use him. The way that defense has been just gutted, I think more often than not, they will still be playing from behind. And I think Thompson's going to get some action.
Yeah, I agree there. It does worry me, though, because like you said, last week was the perfect opportunity for Thompson to shine, and he just didn't. So I'm not giving up on him, but it does raise some concern for me, for sure.
Yep, 100%.
All right, number 9, I got Zach Moss from the Bills. Going into the season, we didn't know between him and Singletary what the split was going to be. He got 9 carries, got 3 receptions for 16 yards, and had that touchdown. He seems to be the preferred option near the goal line.
And last year I was a big fan of Singletary. He really helped me out at the end of the season. He was a guy I stashed on my bench, and then with injuries to and the way that Chubb was playing at the end of the season last year, I plugged Singletary in a few places, and he helped me out. And I was very excited for him this off season. But I think the way that Moss has looked, I think they're both going to be flex plays. But I think they're going to kill each other's value. Moss is going to get the goal line work, and Singletary's going to get the work in between the 20s and some catches. And I think they're going to both do just enough to keep each other from being anything more than flex plays.
Yeah, agree there. Number 10 is my very own Jalen Rager. The reason I didn't rank him last week is because I thought he was going to be hurt. He had a 2 to 4 week timeline that turned into he had a 2 to 4 week injury timeline that turned into playing overnight. So it's kind of shocking. He had some positive things. He got targeted 3 times. He had that one catch for 55 yards, and then Carson Wentz overthrew on that 75-yard bomb, which killed me. He played the most snaps to the Eagles wide receivers, and I mean, honestly, their Eagles receiving room isn't that great to begin with, so it won't take much for him to be the wide receiver one in pretty short order, I think.
Yeah, especially with Deshaun Jackson still apparently battling some sort of injury. I was pretty aggravated because with Miles Sanders out, I had to start Deshaun Jackson in one league, and to see him just sitting on the sideline with his helmet in his hand was pretty aggravating for them to not tell us he was going to be on the snap count. So it is what it is, and I'm pretty high on Rager. I think that he's going to be somebody that everybody's going to want in their lineup before the season's over.
All right, so that's my team for this week.
Just a couple spots there that I disagree with you. Dobbins at 3 just feels a little high, and the only reason I say that is because, as we were talking about before we went live, I don't know what's going to happen week to week with Baltimore. You know, it was reported today that they were saying that the running back touches are going to be week to week. So until we see Dobbins consistently get the goal line work and get as many touches as he did, I just feel like 3 is just a little high for him. I think next year and dynasty leagues, he's one of my favorite running backs, and he could be that this year, but I play a little cautious sometimes, and I don't want to start him just to see him get 5 touches for an entire game. I don't think it would be that drastic, but you get the point that I'm saying. You still with me, Dan?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, it froze up on me for just a second. And I feel like this is just me being stubborn, like we were talking about. Robinson, I would put Moss and Rager both over Robinson. I know we had a really productive week 1, but I feel like it was a one-off, and the way that they were using Shenault all over the place, I see Shenault getting some backfield work. I still think that they're going to sign a veteran running back that's going to kill his value. I think Thompson's still going to be involved. Is it Armstead that's on the COVID list?
Yeah, Armstead.
Yeah, once he comes back, he's going to take some work. So if I have Robinson, I don't. If I have Robinson anywhere, I would be looking to sell high.
All right, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, like we said before, like I only put him there because he did do such a great job, and Thompson was never
absolutely.
Found. Like, yeah, Thompson should get more work, but until he does, like I can't not put him on the list that way.
I give you that. So next thing we're going to talk about is my weekly article. Like I was talking about, we couldn't talk about it last week because I was on family vacation and everything. I was focusing on the family, so I didn't get everything out as quickly as I normally would on a normal week, but was able to this week. So we'll discuss it this week. My first thing was don't overreact to week 1. And I know that's just generic fantasy advice, but there's so many people that panic. And I'm not going to lie, the way my week started, I want to panic. But sometimes you just got to breathe, and just looking at some of the stats from last year, here's a couple of names for you that were top 10 wide receivers in week 1 of 2019. The number 1 wide receiver was Sammy Watkins. Surprise, surprise. Number 2 was Deshaun Jackson. Number 3 was John Ross. Number 7 was Philip Dorsett. And number 8 was Larry Fitzgerald. So they were not anywhere near the top 10 at the end of the season. And some guys that finished outside of the top 30 wide receivers week 1 last year. Number 31 was Chris Godwin. Number 33 was Kenny Golladay. 39 was A.J. Brown. 40 was DK Metcalf. And 49 was Devontae Parker. So I know that's a lot of names, but I just wanted to emphasize how, it's a weekly game. And especially with such a weird offseason that we had, this week 1, not that it doesn't mean anything, but just don't overreact to it. And if you can find somebody who's overreacting, strike while the iron's hot. Somebody who's worried about Austin Eckler or Nick Chubb or Dak Prescott or Carson Wentz, go out and I wouldn't say, Mike Thomas, not necessarily lowball him, but, see if you can offload somebody who started hot and get some value for the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. I got fully I admit that I got caught in this Sammy Watkins trap last year. He had that huge 30-point game week one, and I spent
It happens to the best of us. You're not the only one that's ever happened to.
And of course he does. He scored 30 points total the rest of the year. So
and people are falling for it again this year because of the way that he played in the playoffs. And this year, I just Sammy Watkins has the talent, but in that offense, he's not going to be what he was in week one.
Yeah, but definitely taking it slower this year. Make it, I drafted the team for a reason. Give him a chance before I throw him overboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing too is scour the waiver wire. A lot of times if there's nobody I see that I like, I wait until the second or third day of the waiver runs to see what people have panicked and what people have dropped. A lot of times you can find some gold out there when people are just get frustrated and drop guys.
100%.
Second thing that I in my 10 things for week 2 was I'm still a little wary of Aaron Rodgers. Don't get me wrong. He can blow up in any week, and he can have a week like he did. But the Vikings secondary is just Swiss cheese. They lost Xavier Rhodes. They lost Trey Waynes. They've been their starting quarterbacks for the past 3 years. Their front seven is going to be tough, but I got a feeling that the Vikings defense is going to be one that you're going to want to attack when it comes to fantasy matchups for your quarterbacks and wide receivers. People forget Aaron Rodgers had some blow-up games last year, and he still, to his standards, had a disappointing year. Not necessarily, he was a value in drafts this year. I think he's going to be pretty solid, but I would, he's another one I would try to sell high. If you could get, a Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott or somebody that's panicking, I would do that 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, agreed. Rodgers always has these blow-up games where he'll go for 10 points a week and then
especially
have
against divisional opponents too.
Yeah. I mean, the defenses, besides maybe the Bears in his division, aren't that great to begin with. So he's just way too streaky to consistently bet on. So if he has one of these 30-40 point games, absolutely try to get the max value you can out of him.
I'm not saying sell low or anything like that, but if somebody's willing to buy in the hype and think that he's Aaron Rodgers from a few years ago, by all means.
Yeah, don't trade him for Baker Mayfield or anything, but
Right, exactly. I don't think I'd trade a trash can for Baker Mayfield right now, but
I wouldn't trade J-Jaw for Baker Mayfield right now.
Yeah, I don't think I would either. But I said trash can, so that's J-Jaw, so it's the same thing.
It's pretty much what he played in first week. So
the third thing is I think the Paris Campbell breakout is happening. He was somebody who was really hyped up last year, and fantasy manager has been spoiled with ever since that rookie season from Odell Beckham, from Mike Evans, Jarvis Landry. I can't think of any other names off the top of my head, but now people are so impatient if a rookie does. And the same thing, as much as we joke about J-Jaw, the same thing with him. If a rookie wide receiver doesn't produce right off the bat, people are so quick to give up on him. And you're seeing it more and more. People who've been playing fantasy long enough, it used to be you wait till year 3, and then that's when you want to target wide receivers for breakout because it takes them a little longer to get caught up to speed. He tied the Colts in targets with T.Y. Hilton at 9. He had the most yards. I think it was 71 yards. He didn't have a touchdown, but they got him a rush out of the backfield. And Phillip Rivers is not going to throw the ball downfield like he used to. He's going to do what he's always done. He's going to dump it off, and he's always like those intermediate routes. So with Campbell playing out of the slot, and T.Y. Hilton hasn't been the perfect guy to stay healthy here in the past few years. So it's definitely see a scenario where Hilton gets hurt and is Campbell's thrust into the wide receiver 1 position for the Colts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely agree with you on the year 3 thing. People used to wait till year 3. Now it's week 3. If you don't produce by week 3,
exactly.
you're done.
Yep.
I think with Paris Campbell, it's twofold. Last year when he got hurt and then no one really saw him, so they kind of forgot about him. And then when Michael Pittman got drafted, and everyone was like, "Oh, Michael Pittman's going to be the next big thing," and that's why.
Full disclosure, I was one of those too. I had to spend some money on Paris Campbell because I was very high on Pittman, and I thought he was going to step in. But this is one of the instances where don't necessarily overreact to week one, but also listen to what your eyes are telling you. You could see it, the way that they played and the way that Philip Rivers continued to look for him, that I think Campbell's going to be the guy for him. Number 4 is going back to talk about injuries. Michael Thomas, it looks like he's going to miss a few weeks. When it was first reported, he said, he's going to play through it. But then they said high ankle sprain. And once they said that, I knew it wasn't going to be good. As a Michael Thomas owner in a lot of places, I'm glad that he's deciding to sit because you can't not start Michael Thomas. But if he was going to play through this, his production would be nowhere near what it should be. Hopefully this isn't something that lingers season long, but if he rushes back like Barkley did last year, Barkley wasn't himself until the end of the year. He was out there, but he was not producing. So I worry that if he rushes, that's what's going to happen again. I worry that he is going to rush because they haven't placed him on the IR yet. With the IR only being 3 weeks, I'm hoping that's not him thinking he's going to play in the next week or two. If he was, in my opinion, I would say, they got a week 6 bye. Don't play him until after the week 6 bye and let him get completely healthy because they're, as old as Drew Brees is, they're win now. So I definitely takes Drew Brees down a notch or two. Kamara, I really feel like it's going to stay the same. Yeah, he'll probably get a couple extra targets, but defenses are also going to be able to key in on him. The big winners, I think, are Emmanuel Sanders and Jared Cook. What's his name? What's the speedy wide receiver? I can't think of it right now. Got my notes on
the Saints.
Yeah,
Tre'Quan Smith.
Yeah, Tre'Quan Smith. Sorry. I think he's got a little bit better chance of producing, but he's not somebody that I really want to depend on. He's going to be a poor man's Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, Tre'Quan Smith. Thank you. I think it's going to raise the floor for Jared Cook. He's always got that ceiling, but he's always had that zero floor. I think he's really going to be the one to benefit to be able to run those intermediate routes over the middle that Michael Thomas has made his staple these past couple of years. So he's the one who I think, other than Emmanuel Sanders, it's going to benefit the most.
I think that's a good timeline, waiting until after the week 6 bye. I don't know everyone that owns is going to like that timeline. I think as soon as the injury came out, you could just hear fantasy Twitter wailing.
Yeah. And what's so frustrating too is that at the end of the game, the game was basically in hand. Why is he even in there? He was injured blocking from Latavius Murray. It's just Sean Payton, he's an offensive genius on some aspects, but he outthinks himself sometimes, like with his obsession with Taysom Hill. But that's another story for another day. But he shouldn't have been out there.
No. Yeah, I think that, gives everyone a chance to step up. I think that Sanders is going to do really well. He's a great route runner. Breeze, Breeze is going to target him a lot. Tre'Quan Smith and Jared Cook. I think someone that you didn't mention that could benefit is Latavius Murray. I think they might start flexing Kamara out wide more and have Murray in the backfield. So you could be getting some more chances there too. But it's definitely a fantasy apocalypse if he can't come back healthy.
Yeah, especially if you're like me and have Godwin, him, and A.J. Brown all on the same team.
Yeah, so that is just terrible. I almost feel sorry for him.
Forget. It is what it is. Number 5, Jonathan Taylor is going to take off. With the Marlon Mack injury, the story of week 1 was injuries. I feel like Jonathan Taylor was getting overdrafted and people got bailed out by the Marlon Mack injury. But, that's just how it works out sometimes. I immediately boosted Jonathan Taylor in my season-long ranks to number 10. I think he's with this offensive line, he's already been announced as a starter. He's going to get the early down work. And he proved, week 1, he could catch the ball. Before Matt got hurt, he was catching passes. So I think that he's got the talent. He's got the situation. I think, people were high on the Colts defense, but for Gardner Minshew and whatever's left of the Jacksonville offense to do what they did, I don't think they're going to be quite as good as everybody thought. So this offense is going to have to score some points, and I think it's going to run through Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, the guys up before my rookie rankings, I'm way up high. I agree with everything you said. He's going to, take the ball, run with it, and he's not going to get that job back. Real quick though, where do you have him in your rankings compared to Edwards-Helaire?
I have Edwards-Helaire 9 and him 10.
9 him.
So I do think, and they're neck and neck, and it was talent wise. I do think Jonathan Taylor is a better running back, but you can't deny that situation and that fit in Kansas City. I think it's one of those scenarios that CEH could have gone just about anywhere else, and he wouldn't be ranked anywhere near as high as he is. But it's just a perfect fit in Kansas City.
Yeah. Kansas City is definitely one of those like unicorn situations where they could throw you into and you could produce in fantasy.
Yeah, exactly, absolutely. So for number 6, I'm not quite worried about Nick Chubb just yet. Everybody's panicking. The way that he was not used at all in the fourth quarter. There's no denying that when Kareem Hunt started playing, his production went down. I think he's averaged 6 points less per game since Kareem Hunt's been in the fold. But he's been, he was being overdrafted a little bit this year, I will say, but he's still a rock solid back end RB1, high end RB2 that he could go off any week. Mm-hmm. I watched a lot of that game because I have both Lamar Jackson and Nick Chubb, and Luke Markworth from YouTube has a really good point. Chubb looked great. He had 6 yards per carry. They were putting him out at receiver. At the beginning of that game, Chubb looked fantastic. But they got down so big, and I've said this a few times. I have no evidence to back this up, but I really think part of it had to do with them playing on Thursday night. They knew they weren't going to come back and win that game. Why put the extra meaningless carries on Nick Chubb when they have a very winnable division game on Thursday night that they're probably going to have to ride Chubb into the ground? It's been said that people who don't like the Thursday night games, that running backs, their production drops because they haven't had a chance to heal from having a game a few days before. So I honestly think that has a lot to do with why Chubb did not play in the fourth quarter. What do you think?
I think there's some level of concern for Chubb. I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. I think that 2 factors that really got people worried are that Kareem Hunt got more work than I think a lot of people were assuming he was going to.
Yep.
And the fact that they gave Hunt that contract extension.
That's definitely frustrating. That's why, in a lot of places I was happy to hang on to Chubb because I was thinking, okay, even if Hunt is still there for this year, he'll probably sign somewhere else next year. I really did not think that they were going to extend him. And if Chubb had this backfield to himself, I would have him ranked in the top 5 running backs. He's one of the best pure runners in the league. Mm-hmm. But he's, with Hunt in the backfield, it definitely takes a chink in his armor and brings down his value just a little bit.
Yeah. And while I don't agree with this point, you can see some people starting to question that maybe, Chubb isn't the future and that Hunt is with the contract extension. That might not be true, and Chubb could get an extension himself. But even the fact that question has to be raised now
absolutely.
It's going into people's minds. And like I said,
especially with the pandemic affecting the salary cap, and teams aren't going to have as much money as they thought they were going to have in the next few years. Especially, who knows what's going to happen when fans are going to completely be able to fill up stadiums again. So that's definitely a fair question. I didn't think about that, but that's a really good point.
What was that? What did I just have?
I think I said that J-Jaw sucks, and you had a good point for once.
All right, just making sure. Okay, continue.
Yeah, every now and then. We'll go through these a little quicker. It looks like Tua time is going to happen sooner than anticipated. I was honestly one of those who thought that he was going to redshirt this season. I didn't think they were going to rush him back. They're not really playing for much. But, Fitzpatrick, he does what he always does. He goes to a new team, he lights it up, he gets them to to commit to him for another year, and then he craps to bed. If he looks as bad as he did week 1, he only threw for 191 yards. He had 3 interceptions. no touchdowns. If he looks that bad, they're going to have to go to Tua.
I see. I disagree. What were you really expecting with Ryan Fitzpatrick? Like, were you expecting to make the playoffs or something? What?
No, I'll make the playoffs, but not be that abysmal. The interceptions, yes, but usually it's 250, 300 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. It's not, less than 200. It was less than 200 yards and no touchdowns. So
Yeah.
If he can just be respectable, I think they'll stick with him. But if he's this bad, I think they'll roll to Tua.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just think that
they should. I don't think they should, but
right. Yeah, I agree. Tua should get as much time as possible to heal. I mean, that's the kind of injury you want to be 100%. And
absolutely,
the worst thing that happens is you suck again. You have a great draft pick next year, and you build around Tua next year. Like, I don't really.
That takes common sense, and a lot of NFL front office don't have common sense.
They really don't.
Just like the Giants last year beating Washington. So we had a worse pick when it meant absolutely nothing, but that's Gettlemania for you. He doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He can draft pretty good, but he makes some boneheaded decisions. But
yeah,
I for one, going on number 8, I'm worried about Drew Lock. He was the darling of everybody this offseason. All the weapons they got, with Jerry Jeudy, they had Cortland Sutton, Noah Fant, and KJ Hamler. He's the type of guy that I would normally target because in that type of offense, you really don't know where it's going to come from week to week. So I buy the cake instead of the icing. I'll take the guy who has the weapons instead of trying to find which weapon you want. But other than he had one, it was, week 14 last year, 309 yards, 3 touchdowns. Since then, he hasn't had a single game that he's thrown more than 1 touchdown. He's only had one game that he's thrown more than 200 yards. And that was the next week, week 15. On 40 attempts, he had 208 yards. He just did not look good. And then this week, too, he's going up against the ridiculous, I think the best defense in the NFL, the Pittsburgh Steelers. TJ Watt is going to eat his lunch. And until I can see Locke string a few games together, there's no way that I'm starting him as a second quarterback in a Superflex league. And no way he's touching my lineup. And I don't play in any QB1 leagues, but in a Superflex or a 2 QB, I'm not starting them.
Yeah. I definitely share the concern. I think that it's a little too early to eject him because he hasn't really had a full offseason with all those new weapons, and most of his weapons are still young guys and rookies.
Sure.
But last week there was definitely some concern with the way he played. He definitely has to step up. He definitely has enough weapons where he should have been better.
Yeah.
But
this feels to me like Brock Osweiler all over again, and I know that sends shivers down people's spines because he killed DeAndre Hopkins' value a few years ago. But I just until I can see him do it consistently, I'm not buying.
Yeah, I just feel bad for the Broncos. They keep trying to throw darts.
They just cannot. They can't
get a break.
They can't do it.
I think that was the deal with the devil they made. They got Manning in the Super Bowl, but then they were in QB purgatory for the rest of their lives afterward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just because John Elway was one of the best quarterbacks ever doesn't mean that he could find a quarterback just like the GOAT Michael Jordan. Even though he's one of the best that's ever played, didn't make that good of a front office guy. So, but that's another story for another day. Number 9, your boys, the Philadelphia Eagles, had a very, very rough week 1. I watched that game too because I have Carson Wentz in a lot of places, and that was ugly. But help was on the way. Lane Johnson is supposed to come back this week. Miles Sanders is supposed to come back this week. Nobody knew that Deshaun Jackson was on a snap count. Rager was still hurt. I think he's going to be just fine. I think that he's going to be a top 10 fantasy quarterback at the end of the season. I think that it was just a blip on the radar, and I think they underestimated the Washington football team. With that pass rush is ferocious, man. Chase Young is a stud. I'm so upset that we beat the Redskins and lost out on getting him, but again, that's Gettleman.
Yeah.
I'm sure you probably feel the same way since it's your loving Eagles, but I think they're going to be just fine. There's somebody who, if people are willing to sell low on Miles Sanders or Carson Wentz, I know they're not going to sell low on Goddard, but if you can get Hurts cheap too, I think that this offense is going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think no question. Wentz had a bad game. It was one of his worst games probably ever seen. But people are underselling the fact that we were never played a snap of professional football at right tackle at some point during the game. I mean, the injuries to the line were just absolutely brutal. We're starting Jack Driscoll and Jordan Mailata. Like, these are guys that are rookies, and I mean, you can't do that against. And
That's just
Washington
for you and
line,
I out there on offensive line.
pretty much, yeah, you're throwing nobodies out there, and Washington line is legit. So I think that Wentz plays better. I think Lane Johnson and Miles Sanders actually giving them an actual running game, which didn't exist in week
Yeah,
one, is
Boston
definitely
Scott
going to
got
help.
hurt too, didn't he? He was
Yeah,
out for a
he
little
did.
bit of the game.
Yeah, it was Corey Clement and
It was Corey
Jason
Clement.
Huntley, who we just picked up from
Exactly.
Detroit. So I think that with people coming back
I will say
healthy,
that the stipulation is for Carson Wentz to make it out alive this week going against Aaron Donald. As long as he's alive after this week, I think it'll be fine. But
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Donald just picked up one of our offensive linemen and threw him at Carson Wentz. That's what I kind of expect.
man, he's one of the man. I think he's going to go there as one of the best ever, honestly.
Yeah, he definitely is. But yeah, I think that it's gonna be okay. I'm not ready to throw in the towel just on the Eagle season.
Much as it pains me to say it, comes to fantasy, as much as I love the Giants, I try to be as unbiased as possible, and I think the Eagles' offense will be just fine.
Yeah.
And the last thing out of my 10 things was, is it Miller time in Tampa Bay? Now with Chris Godwin hurt, Mike Evans beat up, it's no secret that Tom Brady likes to target these guys that just run over the middle, these short, scrappy guys that get some yards after the catch. I think he had 6 targets and 72 yards, and he had a rush as well. The Panthers is another one of those defenses, like I was saying, the Vikings earlier, that I think that you see them on your schedule for your quarterback or your wide receivers, you start drooling because their defense is going to be bad. I think they're doing the right thing. They're rebuilding, but it's going to be a rough season in Carolina. And I think Miller is a solid flex play. And it looks like Godwin's going to be out. I honestly think in PPR leagues you can slot him in as your wide receiver 3. And if he catches a touchdown, he could have a big day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think even nothing else, Evans and Godwin dealing with injuries, and him being the next one up is going to give him his opportunity. Even as far back as training camp, we had reports that him and Brady had a really quick connection going on, and you're seeing that like carry over into the season. So I think that even going forward, if Evans and Godwin can be healthy and Grunk just isn't what he used to be, I think Brady's going to rely on Miller more and more. So I think he's definitely a good wide receiver 3 play this week.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the last of my 10 things. You can see both my 10 things to know about week 2 article and Dan's rookie rankings article on goingfor2.com if you want to look a little more in depth in those. Next, we're going to go to some viewer questions. We post usually on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. We'll shoot out a tweet that asking for questions. So if you have any questions that you want to be not guaranteed, but if you want first priority, respond to the tweet that we send out. It'll either be on my page or Dan's page, and we're going to get to as many as we can. The first one is from my guy Marty at Beamer Cleaner. It's flex 1 point PPR, need 2 out of Traquan Smith, Christian Kirk, Josh Kelly, or Randall Cobb. I'll let you go first on this one.
All right. So at two, I'm going to take Kelly and Smith. I think Traquan.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Again, you're agreeing with me. This is great.
Yeah, something's wrong. I need to go take my temperature or something.
Yeah. I think Kelly, obviously, like we talked about before, is going to get a lot of play in LA. This weekend, probably take over that Melvin Gordon role a little bit. And with the injury to Mike Thomas, Traquan Smith is going to get his opportunities. And if he, breaks a long one for a touchdown, that makes your fantasy week right there. So definitely those 2.
I mean, look at the type of weeks that Ted Ginn had a few years ago. I think it could be that kind of situation. He's not somebody I want to rely on, but his ceiling is a week-winning ceiling. So he's definitely out of those guys. I still, really like Randall Cobb, but going against Baltimore and the way he looked, Deshaun Watson barely looked his way. He played a lot of snaps, but he didn't get a lot of targets. So
that must have hurt you badly.
Yeah, it did. I apologize. He was my sleeper for the week last week. I was wrong. Hopefully, I still think he's going to be useful over the season, but right now you can't Can't
Yeah.
roll him out there. And with Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins was at 16 targets last week. That's just unreal. I think Kirk's going to be okay in the long run, but until we see, the targets get distributed a little more evenly, Kirk, you really can't throw out there either. It's just
The reports of Hawkins' demise were greatly exaggerated.
Yep, and I feel bad because I've been a Hopkins truther since day one, and I not necessarily gave up on him, but I bought into the narrative of going to a new team, a COVID off season. It might be a little rough for him at first, but week one he's proven me wrong. I think he's one of the best, if not the top three, just pure talent wise in the NFL. The catches he makes is just unbelievable.
Yeah, especially with Mike Thomas hurt, he's definitely up there now.
Yep, absolutely. Another question from Truck. It's at Truck1223, another good friend of mine. Start one at flex between Hines, Dobbins, Sutton, Malcolm Brown, or Traquan Smith. I would go with Nyheim Hines, with it being PPR this week, going against Minnesota. I'm firing up every Colt I can. That defense is not good. And I think, in Dobbins' role, Rivers, he's going to be Austin Eckler light. He's a Danny Woodhead, that type of guy that, it might be 10 catches, 10 would be a lot, but 7 catches for 30 yards, right there, that's double digits. And if he's able to sneak in a touchdown or two, he's going to have big days. So I like Hines a lot. I think he's an automatic flex just about everywhere. The only reason I would say him over Dobbins, it's nobody knows what's going to happen in Baltimore. Yeah, Dobbins got the touches this week, but is it going to happen again? So until I see some more consistency, give me the known factor with Hines in the backfield versus Dobbins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unfortunately, I agree with you there. I think with Matt getting hurt and how much Rivers likes to dump off to running backs, that Hines is in for a really big game. I think you pulled out pretty much 10 catches, but it's definitely possible. That wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility for me. So I think in that case, and with Dobbins and Ingram isn't really going anywhere. I know that I ranked him high, but like you said, it's a week-to-week game. So if for some reason Ingram gets the touches and Dobbins doesn't, that's going to kill your week.
And Lamar Jackson only had, I think, 40-something yards. He's going to have the games where he's going to rush for over 100 yards, and he's going to rush for those touchdowns. So that's just one more place for the production to be taken away from Dobbins. So
yeah, so definitely Hines.
All right, our next one is from Duke Fartworth, Socratic Theory. What are you doing with Preston Williams in redraft this week? I have Raygor, Preston, and Emmanuel Sanders for one wide receiver spot this week. Full disclosure, I have a huge man crush on Preston Williams. I love the guy. I think he is going to be the number one wide receiver in Miami. However, this week he's got a really tough matchup against a really good Buffalo secondary. I think in this spot you've got to go Emmanuel Sanders.
Mm-hmm. I also had in my one money league, I had Preston Williams in full disclosure. In redraft, I dropped him for Miller, actually. Really? Yep.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm just not really a fan of his. I think he can produce, but it's just too much of a headache for me to count on the 1 or 2 weeks where he's going to blow up. So I think in this specific question, I would rank him Sanders, Raygor, Williams. I think Sanders is going to get a bunch, especially in PPR. He's going to get a bunch of catches. He runs great routes, and Raygor has the big playability going for him. So definitely those two over Williams.
We've got a question in the chat from Yessie. Dynasty, half point, PPR need to sit 2 out of OBJ, Diggs, Gallup, Hollywood, and Hines. Oof, that's a good problem to have. It's
and he has JT.
I really
already.
think, and JT. So you got to start JT, no question.
Yeah.
I think the first guy you got to sit is OBJ. It's obvious he's got the Hall of Fame talent, but until with those other guys, I definitely start Hollywood over him. I definitely start Hines over him. So it's between OBJ, Diggs, and Gallup for me. I would probably sit OBJ, and I'd have to say Gallup. There's Diggs. in that offense, John Brown's hurt too, so he might be really the only guy that's catching the ball in Buffalo. There's a lot of mouths to feed in Dallas. So Gallup's another guy who could, he's one that is very boom bust. I could see him having a big game, especially against a susceptible Falcon secondary. But out of those options, I would sit OBJ and Gallup.
There's 5 really good options there. Like you said, the guy always has a good problem to have. I cannot believe after all 5 names, I'm agreeing with you with OBJ and Gallup. How is this possible?
Something's wrong, man.
This is ridiculous. I hate myself right now. But like you said, OBJ,
so that makes 2 of us.
The feeling is mutual. But yeah, like you said, OBJ, talent-wise, he's off the charts, but production-wise, and in a Thursday night game, you just can't trust him.
And, us saying this, of course, he's going to go off for, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. But
yeah, he's going to make one-handed catches all over the place and score like 6 times. And then Gallup, I like Gallup. I just think that CD is going to eat into his production. You have Cooper still there. And it's not that I don't like Gallup. I just like him less than the other options that are presented. Really, that's really the case. It's not that he's a bad option.
Yeah, I was really trying to Gallup until they drafted CD Lamb.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. Just that with the other options available, I just put him below those.
Yeah, he's just got the lower floor versus the other options, and that's what you
want
the ceiling floor. Yeah. So we're going to go on to our Thursday night sleepers. Each week we're going to pick a guy from the Thursday night game and somebody that not necessarily one of the big names that you're going to start, but somebody we could see producing some pretty solid numbers. So who do you have for this week?
All right. Well, this one is a little out of I dug deep for this one. I'm going to go with Harrison Bryant from Cleveland. I think that they really like him there. Njoku's hurt, so he's gone. He can line up all over the field. Hooper hasn't really blown the doors off that position. So I think, give him a couple carries, give him a couple catches. He could produce something this week.
I think Hooper was being vastly overdrafted this year. I think he was more, not that he's not good, but there's a big difference moving from the Atlanta offense to the the Cleveland offense.
Yeah, that's what it was. They were drafting him based on his Atlanta numbers, not where he was going.
Exactly. Right.
Who do you got?
For my sleeper for tonight is going to be C.J. Uzomah. I'm digging deep and going with the tight end on the other side of the field. We all saw Cleveland get demolished by Mark Andrews, and I'm not saying that Uzomah is Mark Andrews, but he did get 5 targets. For somebody who's looking for a streamer, I feel like he could do a lot worse. It's going to be one of those that I think he's going to get around the same 5-6 targets, 4 or 5 catches, 30 to 40 yards or something like that. If he gets just a touchdown, you got yourself a tight end 1 for the week. So I think he's got that opportunity. I think Joe Burrow is going to play a lot better tonight. I think he's going to try to prove something in the Battle of Ohio, and I think that Uzomah is somebody you can slot in as a streamer for your tight end position.
That's a good call.
So something that we decided to do last week, we're calling it our Call Your Shot. We're basically going to take a position. We're going to put a number threshold, and we're going to keep up with the record for the season long. At the end of the year, we're going to do something fun. Did we decide yet? Are we going to do something like we get to design our avatar, or Twitter avatar, and we'll come up with specifics.
Something like that, yeah.
Announce that within the next few weeks or something like that. But something along those lines where we're going to thoroughly embarrass the other one. I'm sure it'll have something to do with the Eagles and the Giants or J-Jaw or Eli or something along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
But last week we said a wide receiver that would score 10 points or more. And obviously this couldn't be your run-of-the-mill normal guys. It has to be somebody you dig deep for. So I went with Laviska Shenault, and he got 13.4 points thanks to a touchdown. They had a couple catches and okay yardage, but the big thing was that touchdown that pushed him over. And who did you choose? I've never heard this guy's name before. I don't think you talk about him every day of your life.
I don't though. I don't talk about him every day of my life.
Okay, he gets brought up in.
He does. I don't talk
Yeah.
about him.
Okay, I give you that.
It was JJ Arcega-Whiteside.
Yeah.
Who I'm
And
thoroughly
how many?
upset about. 0. He scored the same
Oh,
points that you did. If
yeah.
this if
Hey,
this were a basketball shot, it'd be an air ball. That's how
yeah.
bad
Well,
it is.
it happens. It happens, and it happens a lot in J. Jaw's career. But I'm just happy I can say that I scored as many fantasy points as your choice last week. So I am leading 1-0. We'll update you guys every week with that, and once we solidify what the punishment is going to be for the loser, we'll go with that. So this week we decided to go for running back, and we're going to go with the threshold of 12 points for a running back. So again, this can't be your normal flex starters. This is just, we don't have stipulations or anything like that, but we just somebody who we both agree that is kind of a dart throw. So who do you got this week?
This week I have Las Vegas running back Devontae Booker. He had actually a surprisingly solid game last week. He had 4 rushes, 29 yards, 3 catches, 23 yards. He seems to have supplanted Jalen Richard in that backup / receiving back role. So if he can match what he did last week and get in the end zone, then I should be in good shape.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that call. I could definitely see that happening. I went with another guy playing tonight. The man with probably the best mustache in all of football right now,
Gardner Minshew.
Giovanni Bernard. What was that?
Gardner Minshew?
No. I think Giovanni Bernard's got him beat, man. That thing is fantastic.
That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
That Gio Bernard looks like the dad from Sister Sister, and if you look, he looks just like him. That's a perfect description. But he did. I think this is going to be a surprise, not shootout, but I think there's going to be a lot of scoring. He got the targets last week. For some reason, they won't throw the ball to Mixon. He's got the talent to catch it, but I just think that he's going to get some run, especially being short week Thursday. I think they're going to not try to overwork Mixon, and I think I could see Gio Bernard getting the 12-point threshold.
Also a good pick.
So that's going to be it for us this week. Tune in next week. Starting in October, we're going to have guests. If you know anybody who you think would be a good fit to come on and just BS with us a little bit, feel free to shoot Dan a message, myself a message. Even if it's you, anybody, give us some feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. One thing I'm going to say every Thursday, if you have a guy playing tonight, make sure you get him out of your flex. You don't hold up your flex position and put him wherever he belongs, and wide receiver or running back, or more likely, less than likely a tight end. Sometimes people have been running with 2 tight ends lately, but make sure you get guys playing tonight out of your flex. You can find me on Twitter at GMenJ. I've got a weekly article at SleeperWire for start sits. I've got a weekly article at Going for Two with the 10 things to know about whatever week we're discussing. And Dan, tell us where we can find your stuff.
Right. Well, I'm at EagleDanFF on Twitter. I write a weekly column, rookie rankings on Going for Two. One point I want to reiterate that we talked about earlier, if you can, try to take advantage of these injuries. The savvy owners, the people are going to be super panicky. Use that to your advantage.
Absolutely.
And last point, Michael Jordan is better than LeBron James. Have a good week too, everybody.
No question. Have a good one, guys.